All right, we're moving right along here on the Xfinity Sports Report, your Colorado High School connection. Brian Roth back with you. All right, time to talk some hoops with Neil Devlin, formerly of the Denver Post, now the sports information specialist at Mullen. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, and you. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, this has become tradition to get Neil in studio after the football state championships, basketball state championships. Talk about the games on Saturday. We'll also talk about a myriad of other things, including maybe a little Mullen football. Don't know if we'll have time to get to that. Let's start in Class 4A, and we'll start with the girls' side of things and Evergreen. Boy, what a run. I mean, for the Evergreen Cougars 3 years ago, Neil, they lose in the state championship game to Valor, and they bounce back. They get state championships last year and then again this year.
And fantastic run, because when you get into the 4A, you get people from the four corners of Colorado and the mountains and the plains. There's an interesting mix and a good group there. For them to do it back-to-back in the female game, I think is terrific. And I mean, you know, you could do a lot better than Claudia Dillon,
yeah.
I think.
Well, and she can play a little volleyball, too.
Missouri on a scholarship for sure.
Rebounding was the key in that game. And how about these numbers, Neil? Have you heard these numbers before? 49 to 18 total rebounds. Offensive rebounds, 25-3. Both those numbers favoring Evergreen, by the way. It's pretty tough to beat a team if they have 31 more rebounds than you.
Yeah, you don't have to have Charles Barkley to win, but it would help. And one of the basic premises, look, they're going to be missed shots, and on our level, there are a lot of missed shots. Go get the rebound. You have to do that. They understood that.
Yeah, Ben Claudia Dillon was absolutely terrific in that contest. On the 5A girls side, this was a battle of titans. I mean, you have Regis, of course, led by Carl Maddie, against Grandview, who has really ascended to the top of girls basketball. Grandview ends up winning it, and a ton of fouls in this game. A lot of girls foul out, but that was kind of the state championship game I think a lot of us expected to see. Despite the seeding, a lot of us expected to see it.
Yeah, I mean, look, down the road from each other, Arapahoe Road, the Aurora area is turned, for girls, has turned into like the boys. They own it right now. Grandview in particular, right now, that's the hot school to go to, but I mean, Carl Maddie does a fantastic job with Regis, and they're always going to be a factor, but is it the championship game we wanted for sure?
You know, one of the interesting things coming out of Grandview here this season, and they mentioned again on Saturday, was if we wanted to prove that we could win one without Michaela Onyenwer, who of course is now at the UCLA. She'll be playing in the NCAA tournament, getting big minutes as a freshman, but Onyenwer goes and graduates, yet Grandview still hoists the trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like before she won, before she was a senior, before the Wolves did. They got there, but they couldn't quite do it. Then they get her as a senior, they do it, then she leaves, they follow up with a victory, and I mean, that's a deep roster. I mean, they have inside game, they have outside game, and I think Josh Ulitsky deserves a lot of credit, you know, not necessarily only for coaching, but for holding it all together with all the personalities and the following and everything.
Yep, but I'll tell you what, they're going to be back. They're going to be loaded coming up next year. They do lose a couple of very good seniors in V-Hill and Galloway. But they still have a lot coming back. And, of course, you mentioned the kind of cradle of basketball players that are in that Aurora area, especially the southeast Aurora area. Grandview is going to be back. All right, on the boys' side, boy, what a great game in Class 4A. And it's Longmont knocking off Lewis Palmer. You saw the highlights earlier in the program. But that's a Longmont ball club that has been so close the last 4 or 5 years they finally get it done.
And it's interesting for me in that, you know, they didn't necessarily have the overall star quality individually that they usually had and they couldn't win with. I thought they were more of a team thing this year. And for Jeff Glosserman to finally win a championship after all the years and the sweat and toil he put in there is pretty sweet. And Longmont is a terrific high school sports town.
Yeah, aren't they? I mean, remember that football run that they had back in the late 80s into the 90s, football runs under Doug Johnson now, and that the boys basketball team has always been very good. Again, Oakley Denning with the game-winning 3. Luke Johnson had 23 points in that contest. And again, Jeff Gloucester going with the first ever state championship. First state championship since 1942. Were you covering?
I had just started my career, yes. I just started. I was in my early days, you know.
All right, then let's get to Class 5A. And listen, George back again. And they're not able to get the job done as Grandview gets it done, and a former George Washington coach and Michael Rogers leading the Wolves to the title.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the city versus suburbs thing, don't you, for big school boys. That's fabulous, and I think that's the way it should be. Now, again, it has shifted. Aurora's won so many in a row and so many out of so many years now. That side of town, in case everybody doesn't know it, a lot of the athletes from the city back in those days, married now, have kids, have all filtered east. That's adding to it. And I mean, Michael Rogers is an underrated coach. This guy knows what he's doing. It's funny, They had another coach lined up for Grandview for him, for the program. Okay, he pulls out at the last minute. Grandview lands on his feet with Michael Rogers. I remember telling the AD that. I said, you guys did great. She goes, yeah, it was fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael Rogers, again, he's a Colorado guy, prepped at Overland, and then obviously came back, was at George Washington, and now gets the job done. They're at Grandview. And, you and I were talking before we went on the air here. It's a George Washington team that they've had a lot of sustained success over the last couple decades, but they haven't won a state title since Chauncey Billups in '94.
I know it's a long time, but you know what? I mean, they're there on a somewhat regular basis, and that's what you have to do first. You have to get there first. They'll have to take the next step. Yeah, but I mean, Patriots have done well over the years for sure. They haven't won, but they've been right there. It isn't like they stink or something.
Yeah, and let's be honest. It is hard to win state championships.
It's very hard. Look at the scores of the games. I mean, we're below 50 on a regular basis and stuff like that. That adds to how hard it is to win. It's just totally stressful and maddening.
All right, so we have a few final points to get to here on the show, and I wanted to bring up the RPI because we looked at the seeding, and especially glaring on the girls' side of things. You have Regis, who's the number 6 seed in Class 5A, despite the fact they were ranked number 1 most of the season, undefeated in the state of Colorado. And made the final. Evergreen wins it as a number 6 seed. Again, we all looked at that and knew the defending champs were not the 6th best team. RPI, I think you can use it, Neil, but I think you can kind of have it lay out the map, and then I think you need a human element there to start doing some adjusting.
Exactly. You need some kind of mix, and the human element is vital. Right. You have to go out and watch these teams. I mean, can Evergreen handle the press? Can George rebound? Does Grandview have perimeter shooting? What kind of rotation does Longmont have? Something like that. RPI in itself cannot be settled by computer numbers only. And I think we've seen this for multiple times. And everybody keeps telling you, well, it's what everybody wants. I'd like to know who everybody is because I haven't met everybody yet. Have you? The coaches don't like it. I mean,
most everybody, but not everybody.
Yeah, I mean, overwhelmingly, they want it to go the other way with the human element.
All right, a couple more things, and I'm going to throw these out to you, and you tell me what you think. A few observations from the season and watching a ton of basketball over the last couple of weeks. Number one, the fouling. To me, Neil, it's partly on the officials, partly on coaches. I think coaches need to do a better job of teaching their kids to play aggressive defense, but to defend without fouling. Not there was a lot of whistles, and again, not to jump on the officials, but ton of free throws in these grade 8 games into the Final Four and championship. Number two, I think teams get way too many timeouts. They get 5 per game. A lot of times get down to the final 4 minutes of the game. Each team still has 4 timeouts left, and the game slows down to a snail's pace. And then number three, I think you need a shot clock. And I know it might be cost prohibitive, but you have got to get a shot clock somehow, some way. I know it starts at the national level. You've got to get a shot clock in high school basketball.
Well, in order, number one, there has to be consistency between the players and the officials, and there's not. Now, you can point the finger at either one or both of them. That it is from both sides, okay? Now, as far as the shot clock goes, I'm okay with it. I mean, I would be happy with like a 35-second one. I'm okay with it. I mean, holding the ball is decades ago. It's Villanova and Penn 32-30 in the 60s and stuff like that. But with the way the shooting has been at the Denver Coliseum and in the postseason, and we have to go to neutral arenas, it's been poor. I think speeding up the game would be a good idea. And then timeouts, I'm kind of indifferent to it. I mean, I'm not. Everything in high school sports isn't a learning experience for me. That helps to a degree, but I mean, basketball calls timeout.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it.
Well, so I've been advocating this at the college game. I do games for CSU, obviously. I think college gets way too many timeouts, but what they have there is a use it or lose it timeout in the first half, where if you don't use it, well, that's fine. You don't get in the second half. There's just too many timeouts in the sport of basketball in general. I've long thought that, and watching all the timeouts down the stretch of these high school games, they're just unnecessary. And again, coaches love them, obviously, but again, it slows down the game. All right, final thought with you. Obviously, you're the sports information specialist there at Mullen. And shift gears for one final comment out of you. Mullen has a new head football coach, Vincent White. Tell us about the newest hire.
Oh, it's terrific. 1979 graduate, won a state championship. I mean, the best thing about him was his character, and then probably next were his academics. Went on to Stanford, was John Elway's running back, scored 2 touchdowns in the band game. 6th-round draft choice of the New York Jets, played with the USFL's Denver Gold for 3 years. Okay, started at Rangeview, ran around colleges all over the place. Let me tell you, Mustangs everywhere are thrilled to no end. This guy's back leading the football program. I mean, the excitement that he has created is like one of the coolest things to happen on that campus in years.
Right. Now, I know we have baseball coming up here, okay? Baseball right around the corner, girls soccer, lacrosse. Football, though, few short months away, and Mullen with the new head coach, Valor Christian with Eddie McCaffrey.
Keep going.
Rod Sherman going from Valor over to Arapahoe. Jeff Ketron is back. He's
Don't
at
underestimate
Chaparral.
Todd Casebeer coming down to
Casebeer.
Castleview.
That's right, from the Western Slope.
And then Eagle Crest has a guy out of from Kansas area as well that won a state championship there, I think, in 6A. We had quite the revolving, doors in 5A this year. It's interesting. Everybody's going for their piece and everything like that, and people change it. I mean, make no mistake, in high school sports, whether you know it or not, man, there is awesome turnover every year. It's interesting how it's filtered down to 5A in this one year, and the names involved.
Right. Yeah.
The names.
That's the big thing. I think when you look at some of the names and some of the schools that we're talking about, a lot of coaches that have won state championships. But alas, we're ahead of ourselves. We wrap up the hoops. Baseball's up next. Have a great spring sports season. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, that's Neil Devlin's been covering the Preps for 38 years. I was about ready to say since 1942. We'll be back after this here on XSR.